Hey, welcome. We appreciate your time today, and thanks for coming out. My name is Mike Knupke. I'm with the San Antonio Family Association, and we have a treat for you tonight, and that is Monica Klein, and she has the Mind Polluters. She's involved in the apostolate of Mind Polluters, and a very serious topic, and she'll tell you a little bit more about it as we go along. I'm opening it up. Dina, if you raise your hand. Dina Cortez. Dina is part of San Antonio Family Association. She's going to be wrapping up the meeting. So I just wanted to thank you for being here and your attention on this important topic. And very important. So you have the agenda there in front of you. And we just went through the 2:30. Just so you know, we're supposed to have 200 people here right now. Eventbrite pulled something. We don't know what. And it was very interesting because when we looked at all the names, there were no Hispanics, not a one. And yet we're in San Antonio. And it's like really weird.
I thought I registered for Eventbrite.
You might have, but we had to move it from 200 to 500 because they had filled it so nobody else could get in.
Wow.
And that's apparently. So they did that at 2:30, and they did that now. They didn't do it Thursday. I don't think they did.
No.
But they did it at 2:30? Pardon me?
They did the same thing with our CEC meeting.
Okay, there you go. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's Eventbrite or somebody else, but they don't live in San Antonio. Otherwise, they'd make sure there's some Hispanic names in there. They must be a bunch of New Yorkers. Anyway. Forget about it. So, but we're glad you made it. We're glad you're here, and there's more people funneling in. So we're going to go ahead and start. If you turn the back, we have a prayer. So we're San Antonio Family Association. If you don't know anything about us, go to sanantoniofamilyassociation.com. We encourage you to follow us on Facebook /San Antonio Family Association. Great articles on the family, marriage, wife, students, sex education, religious liberty, those kinds of issues. So it's very serious stuff. I've been encouraging you to go there, Facebook /San Antonio Family Association for great articles every single day. There's 10 to a dozen articles every single day on those topics. We would like to start off with the prayer on the back, if you will. We start all of our events with prayer. Amen. So the top one we're going to go over first. Prayer to begin the meeting. You can follow along if you'd like. We stand before you, Holy Spirit, conscious of our sinfulness, but aware that we gather in your name. Come to us, remain with us, and enlighten our hearts. Give us light and strength to know your will, to make it our own, and to live it in our lives. Guide us by your wisdom. Support us by your power. For you are God, sharing the glory of Father and Son. You desire justice for all. Enable us to uphold the rights of others. Do not allow us to be misled by ignorance or corrupted by fear or favor. Unite us to yourselves in the bond of love and keep us faithful to all that is true. As we gather in your name, may we temper justice with love so that all our decisions may be pleasing to you and earn the reward promised to good and faithful servants. We ask this of you who live and reign with the Father and the Son, one God, forever and ever. Amen. And you can take that with you and use that prayer anytime. It's funny because we had Lamar Smith, Congressman Lamar Smith. You guys know that name, right? Yes. He came to our office. He says, "That is the best prayer I've ever seen in my life." It's, take it. And he's a Scientologist, I think. So ecumenically, it is a great prayer. Anyway, so what I'd like to do is introduce Monica Klein. She's has her history in this particular topic through the city of Austin. She's from the Valley, and she's done a fine job along with the individuals that run the ministry or apostolate that she's involved with. So I'm not going to go any further than that, except for give her a good San Antonio warm welcome, Monica Klein. Monica?
I'm glad you all are here. So is anyone else here from the Rio Grande Valley? You are? From where?
I'm from Edinburgh.
From Brownsville, but I went to Los Fresnos. I graduated
nice.
from Los Fresnos High School. So
Oh, that's,
little-
what's the name of the singer?
Oh, Selena.
Oh, Selena?
No,
Selena?
no,
Freddie
country
Fender?
one.
Freddie Fender?
Freddie Fender!
Yeah.
Freddie Fender country.
Yeah, exactly.
Is he from the valley?
I think
Was he
so.
from there?
I think so. In Los Fresnos, I don't remember. But anyway, I'm really happy to be here with all of you tonight and to bring the film to you. So let me make sure it's working, of course. Yes, there it is. And I'll just start it a little bit so that we know it's working. Sorry guys, I forgot to rewind it. So you don't want to just see the end. Okay, I'm gonna have to do this really quick. Uh-oh. Okay, there. All right. Well, so all of you are here because you are concerned about children and the indoctrination happening in the schools, is that right?
Yes.
Yes, you've been fighting hard? Absolutely. And tonight, this film is going to confirm most of your fears. So this film was created by Mark and Amber Archer. They are a married couple. They live in Indiana. And they have a Christian film ministry called Fearless Features. So it's fearlessfeatures.org. They created Inwood Drive, which is a movie about the abortionist Klopper. This is their second film, The Mind Polluters, and they're working on their third film. They don't have any staff. It's literally just a husband and wife. They do all the writing, all the recording, all the editing. It's just them. They don't get grants or foundation money. They just depend on donations. So I say that so that if you'd like to support them, you can go to fearlessfeatures.org to support them. And what they did in this film is that they gathered experts from across the nation to talk about the indoctrination of our children in public schools, from sex education to social emotional learning, the surveys that are intrusive, asking kids intrusive things about their lives, their sex lives, and the lives of their families. We're going to show all of that in this film. Now, it's going to be a heavy film. It's going to be something that's going to it's really that bad. Now, I want to assure you that all of the material that you see in this film are the most common sex education and SEL materials used across our nation today, including the state of Texas. You're going to see captions at the bottom, and you're going to see Advocates for Youth or Amaze.org. You can look them up yourself. These are organizations that are heavily funded by our government. Advocates for Youth have been supported and been working as consultants with the CDC for decades. They've been getting government money for decades, and they actually consult the CDC on adolescent sexual health. So these are the people who are deciding what kind of health education our children are receiving. So that's something important to know. Now, a part of this film, you're going to feel like, wow, that's a lot of history into this one man named Alfred Kinsey. But this is very important because he is really a big piece of why the sex education is the way it is, why our laws are the way that they are, and it'll really help you to understand the philosophy behind this kind of education. Like Mike said, my name is Monica Leal Klein, and I'm actually a former comprehensive sex educator. I used to be one of those people. I did that for over 10 years in Austin, Texas. I got my start working at a gay organization, and then Planned Parenthood taught me how to share that information with children. And in those 10 years, not only did I teach this education, but I lived it in my own life. Found myself with an unplanned pregnancy, scheduled an abortion to abort my child, because that's what this education teaches you to do. It's just an automatic reaction. But I had a wonderful friend who intervened in my life, humanized my child. I canceled that abortion, and I now have an amazing, very handsome 22-year-old son. I was a single mom for 9 years, so I know what that's like. And you'll see a lot of my story in here as well. Not so much my conversion, but you'll see, what I'm doing today. So I want you to know that when you watch this film, it's going to be heavy. You're going to want to close your eyes. You're going to probably say, please stop the movie. We don't have nudity in here. It's so shocking what's happening to our kids. But I want you to just remind you that God sees all of this and so much more.
Yes.
And then our children see this in the schools and through social media. Let's not pretend that they're not seeing it on the internet, because they are, and hearing it from their friends because they are. And it's up to you, the parent, to control that. But not only are they seeing it, They're learning it in ways like role playing, practicing, making it a part of their minds and in the way that they act. And so that's even more dangerous. So I think that us as adults we can pray together, we can get strength from God to be able to watch this film and allow God to speak to you on what you can do, what's your role. We're all gonna have a different role, and that's okay. All of us have a different role. And you're gonna hear tonight from God, I'm sure, what your role is in protecting children in our communities. So with all of that, I would like to go ahead and start the film.
Really not that complicated. The school were to disseminate this to minors as they are currently doing.
Naturally, normally, if you see a baby and you're late, terrified, negative consequences having
Okay. There was a lady, I think her name was Carol Ayala.
Yeah.
Right? It was spelled with a Y, this is different. And she said that she worked in Austin, and one of the things was at the school, she was told, not to let the parents know. Can a parent take legal action, like true legal action, and bring the hammer down on a school district for saying, why are you not telling me what you're teaching? You're being shady, you're being sneaky about what you're teaching the children.
Yeah, do you want to answer?
Can you take true legal action? Will legal counsel be
Right.
on your side for that?
That's a great question. So there's a lot of nuances in the law and how it gets executed, and I'm not an attorney, but there's no enforcement in Texas Education Code. So the enforcement is the parent. It's your job. If you were to find out that your child, that a teacher or that your child was exposed to something or something happened in your school, the process is to file a grievance. And the grievance process starts at the bottom. You do a level 1, level 2, level 3, and I believe like Northeast ISD, I think in the area has like a level 4, and then it goes to the TEA. And so they rule on it at each level. And they depend on parents to get exhausted out of this process, okay? It is definitely leveled against us. I just came from Northeast ISD, in which I was watching their last grievance before they go to the TEA tonight. That's going on right now. So then we can take legal action. The problem is that you can't jump to legal action with an attorney for a couple of reasons, but the most important one is you didn't exhaust the administrative processes. And the grievance process is the administrative process right now. It's very painful, but it can be effective. And what we recommend is that when you file a grievance and you ask for remedy, because that's what you're asking for remedy from the school district, ask for changes for the whole student body, for the whole school, to change their process or to improve their process, improve their communications with the parents, improve their documentation, whatever it is. So that, for example, if they tell the parents that this is what the program is, but it's actually this, that's a good reason for a grievance. full informed consent, full and fair disclosure is important. And so you would ask for that anonymity. And then you're benefiting the whole school district and the families in your community. And only good can come from that with transparency. And then you have school districts that will fight you every single level and will go all the way up. And that does happen. But like I said, they just try to exhaust it. And if necessary, we can go to the Attorney General's office and get a ruling on it, particularly if you have a strong case regarding the education code that they violated. The other possibility is that, say, a teacher were to violate something that you would find egregious, you can file actually a complaint against their certification. And that can be done at the SBUE. So there's also that process. And then you can do also a complaint to the TEA commissioner, which is kind of jumping it, but it's not the grievance process. It's not a legal process. So you asked about legal, that would be that process. Does that make sense?
You know, I would hope that you would encourage that you have a kind of relationship with your teacher, that you would go and have a conference with your teacher first, talk to an administrator on campus. They're open to that in good school districts. And by law, teachers are required to teach the curriculum. So the curriculum is there. Now, things are with sex education and that sort of thing. We have been opt-in NEISD for years. The problem is that, you know, the first time you see the film in elementary school, you know, they're talking about menstrual periods and this and that. I was appalled when my classroom got moved next to the health education teacher, and I was a 6th grade history teacher, and I saw what the curriculum was, because I was just signing consent forms for my kids. Because I just, you know, I'm an educator, and I just, you know, just signed it without going to the film night and all that stuff. But, you know, I just hope that everybody understands, most teachers are in it for the kids. It's a hard job. And if you would just go talk to your teacher first, because I'm kind of seeing some things that are, hearing some things that, I'm not a teacher anymore, I'm retired, but I would hope that you would encourage people to start there.
Yeah, and the grievance process actually asks that. Did you attempt to resolve it with the teacher directly? And I absolutely agree. And there are teachers that are acting in good faith, and then there are teachers who are locked into the curriculum, whether they want to or not, and then there are teachers that are acting in bad faith. And so the NEISD program, for example, I would argue violates Texas Education Code 28.004E, all 5 components of it, and that's what's being argued over right now. And I would suspect that they are going to vote against the grievance, and it will go to the TEA, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
We can have the lady right here in the second row, and then do you have a question? Okay.
Just one thing that they mentioned in the film was that when they introduce some of these programs, they're not required to disclose it, only a curriculum.
Yep.
So if the parent were to question the educators, administrators, teachers, etc., are they required to disclose that these programs are being taught? Or can they withhold information?
That's a good
from
question.
parents?
When the parent goes and talks to the teacher, you know, first and tries to handle it at that level, do we really think it's gonna change? And are they really gonna tell us the truth?
We have had
You know,
circumstances
what's being
where information is withheld.
Yeah.
We have seen that happen.
That's my
I think that's where, Debbie, you probably maybe recommend public information request, or what do you recommend?
So Texas law requires the school districts to provide full transparency. And so there's actual law on that for all curriculum, and it's very particular for the human sexuality instruction. It is laid out, and that just went into effect, so if you've heard complaints in the past, we were subject to the other law. Now human sexuality instruction has its own transparency, which is much stronger. I'd like to see transparency across the board. If you do not receive full transparency and reasonable opportunity to inspect the curriculum, I would press the school district to provide that or to allow it. And again, file a grievance if not, but always opting out. And again, opting out is afforded by the law. Transparency, Texas law is very good. This movie was made for all of our states. Texas law is excellent, but districts break the law without consequence. So we have to, as parents, hold them accountable.
Lady right up front.
Yes, do y'all have any resources for NISD school district and stuff like, because I don't live on the northeast and NISD?
Dina, do you guys have
Yeah,
information?
we're working on trying to work with as many school districts as possible, but it's hard because, we are, a small board of volunteers, so we would love to find people that can help us do that. We need parents in all those districts, sharing information and creating the groups that are needed to get parents, other parents active and knowing exactly what's going on. Right now, unfortunately, we don't.
Of any anything going on my side of town.
And maybe your job is to form one, because we have been asking for, in the past years, we've been very active with NEISD, because the majority of our board is part of that part of town. But we did make an effort to try to get as many parents involved in as many school districts as possible, and we're just not there yet. So if you are wanting to do that, we would love to work with you and see if we can get that going, because that's what we need to do.
We have this lady here and then the gentleman over here.
So one final thing, I guess I want to make a distinction that at times how you presented where the information that was inappropriate was shown, and then an option for how to prevent, how to refuse, how to assert was shown in the video by you, is the context in which I and the colleagues that I trust know using the terms. So for instance, and it's happened in private schools, home schools, public schools, where someone at some point, some child did something inappropriate. And then somebody had to come in to stop and address it and then provide a way that they might work together to resolve it, certainly including parent input. They've been very inclusive of family input. I've got to tell you, I've worked in a lot of school districts and I haven't known people that were not. At times it took that delay between an event happening, an administrator or support team member needing to stop something, a child learning to refuse. There was time before the parent arrived. And that delay was uncomfortable for the parents before they realized, okay, the discussion of those terms that were shocking were there because the terms had already been said by the student. And they were saying, well, this is not the context in which we want that behavior to continue. Let's refuse this and replace it with something that's healthier, that doesn't involve the sexual graphic content. So usually it was for the purpose of replacement with something that was healthier, is the context that I know it. And that, I guess that's where I'm coming from. Administrators will probably want your support as parents if something happens that your child witnesses and somebody else is inappropriate. They would like permission to be able to stop something, to then bring y'all in as parents to then address what would be appropriate at that point. I don't think so.
Do you, I'm not sure what to comment on, or if there's a question there, but what we're seeing in the schools that are problematic is why this film was created. It wasn't,
I don't think anything's appropriate. I don't think we need to replace anything.
Yeah, and replacing parents.
It needs to come out completely because it comes to this.
The gentleman, yeah, right here.
You know.
I know, just being a gentleman, letting the ladies go first, but what I was going to say first and foremost is congratulations on the film.
Yes, exactly.
It is very much an eye-opener.
Yeah.
I myself would love to know what else I can do, how far we could help out, because get involved type of thing, you know.
Fearless features.
There are more filmmakers in the house. I can tell you that even motivated me, especially.
You are too.
But I will say this is, by the way, great seeing Craig Sawyer, because I followed a lot of his work in the past, and to see him be a part of it is great. What else? Where else can we get another screen? How can we get a screen? You know, because I think more people need to see this.
Yes.
People that I know.
So until this comes out, how will we?
Right, so in Texas, myself and probably Trevor Layala are the ones that are closest to San Antonio. So we can continue to do more showings here. You can, if you get my card that you have up there, you can email me and we can schedule more screenings in the San Antonio area. Carol should be available to do those as well, and then Debbie's just in Austin, so we can get people to come and be part of the Q&A.
Okay.
Is there a minimum that you require in order to?
We don't have a minimum to require. The only thing that we ask is that we would really appreciate taking up a love offering for Fearless Features. They're actually working on their next film that has to do with the transgender movement. And so that would just allow them to continue their research and then creating the next film and getting it out as soon as possible. So we just ask for love offerings, you know, whether it's on their website or if you want to drop off something here and we send it to them.
And the donations for this evening is for your group, correct?
It goes to Fearless Features.
Good, okay, then I'll donate.
And yes, sir.
This isn't a question, it's more of a comment that I experienced when all this started, at least because it's going back decades. It reminded me of fifth grade when we were introducing sexual education, and it was pretty graphic, and it kind of led to what I remember, the middle school behavior, where the girls and the boys were starting to become very promiscuous and very seedy.
Yes.
Complete change from before we were introduced, like, I can't remember what lady said it on there, but it was the boys were the boys, the girls were the girls, and, you know, you eventually moved forward from that point, but from that point on, it seemed like complete change.
We have seen, not that there's any, I think, data that shows a correlation, but what we are seeing, and Audrey talks about this, who's in the film quite a bit, is that when we started introducing sex education in communities and in schools, we started to see an increase in sexually transmitted diseases and unplanned pregnancies. And we're also starting to see a lot of peer-to-peer abuse in the school. And then we're also hearing a lot more about teacher-to-student abuse that seems to be increasing a lot. So I do think that has a lot to do with it. And I hate to say it, but we have a cold stop to close down the building and lock up the doors. So thank you so much for being here. Yeah, thank you.